Hi, it's Jackie Tantillo, host of Should Have Listened to My Mother podcast. Thanks for joining me as we uncover and explore one's relationship with their mother or female role model. Are you who you are today because of or in spite of your mother? It can be complicated, but by sharing these personal experiences, we come to realize how much we have in common. With over 4 decades of broadcast experience, interviewing iconic musicians, authors, thought leaders, and more, these personal one-on-one conversations really get to the heart of the matter, to explore the essence of how, who, and why we became who we are today. I can't wait for you to hear this next episode. My guest, Rachel Simons, was born in Australia and has fond memories of running barefoot in her grandparents' garden in Zimbabwe, climbing avocado and mango trees. Rachel is the daughter of an immigrant who was the daughter of an immigrant. She has spent time in London, Hong Kong, and Tel Aviv, and today Rachel lives in New York City, and she's the co-founder and CEO of Seed and Mill, the first ever Sesame concept store located at the wonderful Chelsea Market in Manhattan. Imagine starting a business based on the power and the magic of those tiny sesame seeds. Seed and Mill prepares and sells dishes made from organic Ethiopian sesame seeds. Her cookbook, Sesame, was released in the spring of 2025. Hello, Rachel Simons. Welcome to Should Have Listened to My Mother.
Hi, Jackie. That intro has me smiling from ear to ear. Thank you.
There's nothing like adding some more light to our day. We all need a little bit more of that in our day. And I have a feeling that the halva and the foods at Seed and Mill do that on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about your business. And that's actually how I found you. A friend gave me a recipe for hummus, which I'd never made before. The recipe suggested organic tahini. And then I found Seed and Mill, and then that led me to reading the label on the bottle, and you and 2 other women are the co-founders of the store. This is fantastic, 3 women working together creating Seed and Mill. I'm so glad you're here. Your mom's name is Jane.
That's right.
And I know your grandmother, the picture that you sent of your mom in the garden is so special. That's really great. Though she has passed, I know that she's still a big part of your life. So Jane, how do you describe Jane in a couple of words, just as we take our first steps into exploring this conversation?
Well, describing my mum in a few words is obviously a very difficult task, but I guess the things that come to mind is she was incredibly generous. She was a really curious person who had so many passions, and she would, change her passions frequently, but she just loved to share whatever she was interested in. She loved to share it with other people. So if she got into an obsession about making fancy cakes, she would bake for everyone she knew. Or if she had a beehive on her roof and was passionate about making honey or harvesting honey. And then she would present all of her friends and neighbors with little pots of honey. But whatever she was excited about, she loved to share that with other people.
And then was that a kind of a thing there she would do these same kind of fun projects with you as a little girl?
Yes,
Yeah.
she was very creative, and her expression for that passion and creativity was mostly in the kitchen. I mean, she had lots of other things that, got her out of bed in the morning, but she was a very, very good cook, and she definitely shared that with my sister and I grew up by her side watching her and learning from her. And then as she became a grandmother, she then really took my kids or her grandkids under her wing and loved to spend time with them in the kitchen.
Now, it's your maternal grandmother that lived in Zimbabwe, and your
Yes.
mom was born and raised in Australia, or?
No, so my grandparents, my grandmother's name was Annika, and she was also a horticulturalist and a farmer, but she was born in Prague, in Czechoslovakia, and she moved to Zimbabwe after World War II. And so my mum was born in 1949 in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. But she then decided to move to London as in her early 20s. And she met my dad, who's Australian, in London. He persuaded her to move back to Sydney, which is where I was born. So there's been a lot of travel in my ancestral family, in my family immediately, and my ancestors have moved around the world a lot.
Yeah, those beautiful little stepping stones that give us all our beautiful outline is very important. And hopefully we can transfer and share all of that with the generations coming after us.
Yeah.
So her demeanor, first of all, was she homeschooled in cooking and all that, or did she study? Did she complete higher education?
Yes, she did, but not in food. So she was a physiotherapist or a physical therapist, I think they're called here in the US. Very, very passionate, physical, like she was a healer, both with her hands and her heart. And so her expertise was obstetric physiotherapy. So she worked a lot with pregnant women and postnatal mother-baby type physio. So that was her professional training. Her culinary skills came really just from watching her mum learn. My grandmother was a great cook, baker, but these were all passions rather than professions.
It takes the time. You have to have the passion to do that. But that's kind of, my mom was the same, these magical dishes that she would whip up for, minimum of 9, because with 7 kids, was just so exciting to me.
Wait, you were one of 7?
Yeah, so for me, I guess
Crazy.
my older siblings say that she did use cookbooks, but I just remember her making these amazing paellas, and because we grew up, we spent a lot of time on the water, and we would go out clamming and fishing and whatever, crabbing, and grab whatever we wanted for the meal. So I don't ever remember her using a recipe. So for me, I try and whip things up at the last minute, and sometimes they work, and sometimes, we call it the newlywed meal.
Oh, Jackie, I love that approach to food. That's how my mum cooked. She never had a cookbook out either. She cooked with her instincts, and she always knew that no matter what it really ended, if it wasn't the perfect cake or it wasn't the perfect meal, it really doesn't matter. If you're cooking for someone, it's inevitably got their love and their generosity in that dish, and you can always feel it and taste it. And I never learned to cook with the recipe book or teaching either. I just learned through trial and error.
That's pretty great, and that's encouraging. And yet we have to talk about Sesame, your new cookbook, which is absolutely stunning. It's just so calming looking through those pages and the colors and the photos. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. It's called Sesame. Yum, yum, yum. So your mom, you've mentioned a couple of gifts that she has passed on to you, whether not so much material gifts. What else stands out when you think of Jane? Because again, she's not with you. What is she saying, or what kind of vibes do you get from her?
She was so resilient. She had a difficult childhood. Both her parents were survivors of the Holocaust, and she grew up in a pretty depressed home with 2 parents who were traumatized, but also they were refugees essentially to Zimbabwe, so they didn't speak English when they arrived. They had to move from Europe to Africa, not have the language, the culture. They just had to rebuild their lives. And then my mum being born into that environment inevitably impacted her sense of, identity and relationship with her mother. And sadly, my mum left her mother when she was 18 and moved to London, and then eventually on to Australia. And at that in the 50s and the 60s, calling your mother or interacting or flying to see your mother, she had a very loving but distant relationship with her mother. And I think that impacted my childhood and my relationship with her too. But I always think of her as brave and resilient and always wanting to nurture really deep, meaningful relationships with people, me and my sister included, of course, but her friends, she was so loving and loyal and generous to her friends and strangers, but she was just one of those people where if you were one of her friends, you always felt looked after and loved and seen and heard. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but she really knew how to be a dear friend to people in her life.
Well, sometimes we have to distance ourselves from an environment that, whether it seems unhealthy or it's not fulfilling or uplifting, we kind of have to take a hike. We have to walk away from it and figure out who we are and what we want in the world. And lucky for Jane that it worked for her to reinvent herself or refine herself and surround her with people that were encouraging, because that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. She received and she gave that encouragement in equal measure.
Do you talk to her?
I know I talk to my mum every day. She's so present. And she's only recently passed away. Actually, it was very hard to write my book. So I wrote the book really by her bedside. She passed away from a brain tumor, but I really spent the last year of her life very close to her. She was in Sydney, but I flew back from New York 5 times in 12 months, and the last 6 weeks of her life I slept in the same room as her, sometimes in the same bed as her. So I spent a lot of time writing the book by her bedside, and I handed in my manuscript on November 10th, and my mum passed away on November 11th. And so the book and the time that I spent with her are very intertwined, and I'm sad that she never got to see the published copy of it. But I mean, back to your question, Jackie, is I do speak to her and I think of her every day, but my grief and the process of losing her is still very present. But I also love to talk about her. I think grief is obviously most people think of grief as a very dark, sad emotion, but for me I'm trying to manifest it by just thinking of all the wonderful gifts that she gave me. And I was the luckiest daughter. My mum was amazing. She was just truly a special. Giving her eulogy, which I gave, was such an honor and a pleasure. I had no shortage of things that I wanted to say and to share about her life.
The grieving process is, it's very important that we take our time and embrace it. And if we have to go to a deep or dark place with it, not so much dark, but heartbreaking, soulful place, it's very important because there obviously was love between the two of you. So you have to honor that love. And you will receive her energy and love in many, many ways. I'm speaking from experience.
What was your mom's name?
Oh, my mom, it was Linda, and this is a picture of her right in the studio. Boop, boop, right there. I always love having her here. She was spectacular, and she lived till 93. So you can't ask more than that. She was very, very special, very spiritual, very avant-garde, way ahead of the curve. She didn't want us fitting in a mold. The last 3 of the 7 kids were born overseas. My dad was there on business. So we have that whole different interaction between the siblings and our experiences, and then coming back to the U.S. in the 60s when my older siblings barely spoke English and she had 7 kids to take care of. So she went through a lot, but she had a wonderful career before she got married, and I always talk about my parents were on the same page emotionally, psychologically. As a human being, they were both coming from the same place, and they did a really, really, really spectacular job with the seven siblings, because we're all very, very close. We're very,
Well, I
very close.
can see, I can feel that stability and that sense of love and calm in you. I'm not really a religious person, Jackie, but I can see having this conversation with you is so cathartic. And honestly, I'm looking at the photo of your mom in the background there, and I could see Jane and Linda. They're probably up above, looking down at the two of us, going, "Look at our daughters having that nice little chat
Chat.
over
When I
there."
saw the picture of your mom in the garden with the kale in her hand, I said, "Oh my gosh, that's Linda's sister." So it's amazing how I connect with guests. I'm very lucky how that happened. I've got a lot of spiritual guidance helping me find really unique people to talk to. And for 6 years, I've been able to talk to some pretty remarkable people. So,
Wow. Wow.
did you always feel safe and secure with your mom in your house growing up?
Oh, now that is a deep question. Um, I always felt physically safe and secure. I always felt emotionally loved. I felt so much love from my mother. But in lots of ways, I think in a subconscious and a not in an unspoken way, I was always worried about her mental health, and I could feel that generational trauma from my grandmother to my mother, and probably now to me. And I'm very mindful of this with my own daughter, because I think my mum was a real trooper. She was such a practical, get on with her life, did a million things, always busy, had 1,400 hobbies, worked. She worked up until she was 75 when she died, and she had been working up until the June, like 3 months before she passed away, working really hard. So, but I think in many ways she filled her time and days and relationships in order not to feel her own pain. And so, did I feel safe and secure? I guess it's a difficult way of saying yes, but no. I always felt a sense of sadness in my family, and in my relationship with my mum. I knew that she was sad, even though she was outwardly very active and busy. Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, absolutely. She intentionally worked at it, right? To not go to that place, I would imagine. So
Yes.
that takes a lot of courage to do that, to keep moving forward.
Yes.
That takes a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to handle, especially as a child, and you're trying to figure out, as a teen and then a young adult, you're trying to figure out what's the truth here, or you know what, it's all good. She did, as my guests say, do you believe with this statement? You tell me. She did the best she could with what she had.
Oh my gosh, she did. She did more than the best. She was an absolutely exceptional, incredible mother. I just think she grew up in a home that had been dealt some pretty bad cards, and absolutely, she did more than the best. I'm so lucky. I feel nothing but immense pride, like truly pride and gratitude. People write to me all the time still, because my mum was also an author of books and had helped so many people with their own health journey, that I get all sorts of messages about how wonderful my mum was. So, um, yeah, I'm lucky, but she had a tough life, and I guess I ended up worrying about her more than I guess you don't want your children to worry about their parents, but I did. I really worried about her.
And you're the oldest of the two girls.
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you ever see her with a girl power or just out having fun? Like, what would make her happiest? Baking and doing all those fun projects for other people?
The things that made her most happy were she loved animals. She had dogs and cats and ducks and bees and birds. And I mean, she was living in a menagerie
That's
of
good.
all sorts. So I loved seeing her interact with animals. She was very happy in her garden. She had this garden that was full of such beautiful flowers and trees that made her super happy. And honestly, I also could see her happiness in helping other people. But that has, let's be honest, that has a flip side to it because she was a people pleaser. And I think I've inherited that from her in that she was really only happy when she was of service to other people. And I think that comes with the fact that she never really felt herself deserving. People
Oh, it's
pleasers are
so
always,
complicated.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I totally understand it. You're more comfortable helping other people and doing things for everyone else. But when it comes to supporting and building up yourself, it's kind of like you're on the back of fence.
yeah,
There is something that you have vivid memories of your mother and your grandmother, right? And you want to thank them for teaching me. This is either from the cookbook or something I found. Thank them for teaching me to plant seeds, but also empowering me to hitch a ride with the wind, scattering those seeds to far and distant places.
yeah. That's the inscription
So
in my book. Yeah,
yeah,
that's I dedicated my book to my mum and my grandparents,
yeah,
and as I said earlier, Jackie, they had travelled sometimes by choice and sometimes not by choice, but my ancestors have really moved all around the world, and sometimes I feel like we've all been just scattered into the wind like seeds. And sometimes seeds can grow really deep roots, and sometimes they grow shallow roots that sort of spread themselves wide. And so that was what I was trying to say thank you for, that no one in my family has deep roots in one place, but we've really managed to still thrive and still grow, and I'm still here. But my roots are they're far and wide.
right. Which is great. We're all unique, right? We're all
Yep.
unique.
I'm still here.
You're so,
And I'm waving and I'm happy and I'm grateful.
and you're
What else?
spreading
What
all
else?
of this wonderful joy with Seed and Mill, which is what I want to talk about now. Whoa. Lisa, Rachel, and Monica, you
Monica.
guys, right? The three of you. Is it Lisa's originally from Israel and Monica's from the U.S.?
Yeah,
And you came together almost 10 years ago?
that's right. Yeah.
And you take it from here because Seed and Mill is let alone it's at the Chelsea Market, which is a great location. If no one knows, you have to come to the Chelsea Market. And I would love for you to go to Seed and Mill as well. So how about if you share the three women coming together to start this business?
Well, we met, all of us were at a very similar stage and age in our lives. So we were all in our late 30s or early 40s. Each of us had had a professional career before starting this next business. So both Lisa and I had been lawyers, and Monica was a marketing executive. We all had kids, we all liked to cook, and we all liked to travel. So Monica's husband is from the Netherlands, and she actually now lives in the Netherlands. And so we shared this experience of being curious about the world and loving food from all around the world, loving to cook, and we met, and I think at the time we were really all excited about just doing something entrepreneurial and something in a space where others hadn't necessarily really we wanted to do something different in an old space, if that makes sense. And well, it wasn't so much that it was, we were all desperately passionate about sesame seeds, but what really is the thread that connects that is that they're old, they have history, they have a love and appreciation all around the world. Not they originated in the Middle East, but they've spread. And just like Lisa, Monica, and I have sort of traveled and we're curious about food and food culture, starting Cedar Mill was just this opportunity for us all to express a passion, those sorts of passions, and just see where it went. We definitely didn't have the vision in the sense of what Cedar Mill looks like today was certainly not in our minds 10 years ago. But the business has evolved and grown into what it is today in a really nice organic. It was a very natural and organic growth.
Which is such an important message for not only women starting a business, for anyone starting a business. We get so caught up trying to make everything perfect right out of the gate, but it's a process. And look where you threw those seeds out and they took. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So
true.
I've never had halva. So that is tahini based, which is what the sesame seeds make. So if you could just a little wrap a story about that.
So tahini, for anyone listening who may not know, tahini is just ground up sesame seeds. So when you make peanut butter and you grind the peanuts, we just grind sesame, and that makes tahini, or that makes sesame butter, which is the same thing as tahini. And I like to call halva the confectionery cousin of tahini. So halva is just a combination of tahini mixed up with a very hot sugar syrup, and then as the sugar cools and we fold the dough, if you like, or the batter together, it just cools into a mold that forms a product called halva. And then we add other things like spices or nuts or extracts, or we flavor it, but the core ingredient in halva is really 50% tahini and 50% sugar. So it has a very unique texture. It's both dense and flaky, which sounds like a contradiction, but it's almost one of those things you have to taste the texture to even understand what it is you're eating.
Well, I'll be coming to see you very soon.
I'd love that. Let's do a second episode. We'll do a live taping
right from the
Chelsea
store.
Market.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And social media, is it Seed and Mill on Facebook and Instagram, or
That's right. It's
Rachel
Cedar Mill,
Simons?
No, I don't really use personal social media, believe it or not. But the business is Seed and spelt with the and spelt out. So Seed and Mill is Instagram and Facebook.
Great. Okay. Rachel Simons, it's such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you. I'm so glad this worked out.
I'm honored, Jackie. I've loved talking with you today. It's really filled my cup.
Perfect timing for both of us. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother.